Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Coming Clean. I feel like it's been so long since we've chatted. I know that we had, it was like 2-week break. Some of the team on the podcast got COVID and that kind of shut down everything. And then it was my birthday. So obviously I was planning on taking that week off anyways to celebrate. You know, we have to celebrate those week-long birthdays when we get older. Make us feel a little better about our age. But I turned 34, which sounds so crazy. And I can't believe it's already August. Like, where has the year gone? Y'all think about that? Like, where has the time gone? It's crazy. All right. Enough talking. Let's jump into today's episode. Today's episode, I wanted to address something that is present in really all of our lives, whether we're young, we're old, we're married, we're single, we're sad, we're happy. And, you know, it's kind of funny with the podcast and, you know, figuring out different episodes and themes. I feel like these themes for the podcast are basically themes that I'm going through in my own life. And I'm like, okay, has to be a podcast episode because this is just, if I'm going through this, then maybe a lot of people are going through this. And this is stereotypically what they say women have a lot of issue with, this topic. So I wanted to address this topic, and this topic is the inability to admit when we are wrong, no matter what. You like the voice that I got there? No matter what. This is something that someone might go even as far to hurt their own chances of happiness and peace, just to be correct. All right, y'all, let's get into today's episode. So this issue, I want to say, quotations, this situation that I'm talking about plagues people from all ages throughout everyone's life. But I want to first talk about it as pertaining to relationships. So as I talked about in definitely a previous episode, maybe multiple previous episodes, is relationships in general can be very difficult to navigate. Conversations can easily turn into arguments, and it can become a point of pride to hold on to your opinions and your feelings. I feel like that there is something about being human that makes us basically hesitant to admit our faults or when we are wrong. When it even might be obvious to us, maybe not in the heat of the moment obvious to us, but even later on when we think about the situation, it can be obvious to us that we are wrong. But it can feel powerful to hold on to something, even if we aren't even sure that we are fully right. I think that it's somewhat of a defense mechanism, but if we're not careful, it can become a pattern. Now, let me go ahead and just say that I've struggled with this, and that is partially the reason that I wanted to talk about it today, because I have recently gone through this. And Coming Clean, this podcast, is all about learning and growing with each other. And I believe that admitting that you are wrong can be the first step to happiness, peace, and growth. For example, if your partner or your friend is convinced down to their core that you said something and you don't particularly remember if you said that, or maybe the words were mixed up, or maybe it was just a game of telephone, who knows? But my thoughts is it doesn't really matter in the end. I know how frustrating it can feel when someone is convinced of something you believe not to be true, but how beautiful is it if you can choose to just defuse the situation? Instead of thinking about being right and taking the power position in that way, why not think about the power in ending the argument altogether, regardless who is right. At the end of the day, to me, being a bigger person is powerful. And not only that, it allows you to move forward in a more natural and healthy way. This is a huge relationship issue. And honestly, it's a huge theme that I've seen in young people today, especially with technology at their fingertips and, the internet, and people just are keyboard warriors and they pick fights behind their keyboard and they basically battle until they die on that hill. I have noticed in the last year that many people disagree on social media, politically, socially, you name it. The problem wasn't disagreeing, though. The problem was that a lot of people forget what it is meant to agree to disagree. So much knowledge, whether it's true or false, on our phones and on social media, many people choose to believe one way and completely exclude the other side of the argument, the other side of the story. And this only leads to hate and frustration. The notion of choosing one argument or one belief and dying on that hill, when you think about it, is plain stubbornness. And honestly, I feel like it just needs to stop. In a world where hate is so common, why not choose to agree to disagree and spread love? We all need to realize it's not a character flaw if we don't agree with someone's opinion. Or respecting others' opinion doesn't take away from your opinion. Different opinions can peacefully coexist as long as we respect each other's right to view the world from their own perspective. The last scenario I want to touch on is the truths that we don't and won't admit to ourselves. And while it can be difficult to admit being wrong to others, it can be equally as difficult to admit wrongdoings, fault, and defeat to ourselves. Whether it is a big issue like alcoholism or a little white lie, it is so important to close the grips with the truth within ourselves. There are so many moments that we allow lies to fill our mind, eventually causing us to start unintentionally even believing them. Remember, and truly remember this, lies become a part of your future, but the truth becomes a part of your past. I saw that quote and I thought it was so good. Lies and or like these stubborn beliefs, they can be something as simple as like your nutrition and your diet and your fitness. For example, I hear this one all the time. We can completely convince ourselves that we have excuses and reasons why we haven't started our fitness journey. I want to say that just because we make up these reasons why we can't see progress or whatever doesn't mean it's true. And it oftentimes is not true. We can convince ourselves we don't have a problem with alcohol, or we don't have a problem with social media, with our friends, with lying. Any bad habit, we can find ourselves kind of having an explanation, an excuse, and we aren't being self-aware. I believe that self-awareness is one of the very first steps to personal growth. Being aware of your situation, what you're going through, your life, being aware. And I really think that is one of the most important steps. Have you ever met a person who just seems totally out of touch with themselves? I have, and it's definitely not cute. I want to be the best version of myself, and I want you to be the best version of yourself. And I truly believe that that will allow so much more happiness and health. And that will not only allow you to be the best version of yourself, but be the best version of yourself for yourself and for others. Okay, let's move into the 5 things. All right, y'all, here are the 5 ways to let go and admit you are wrong in order to protect your peace and to ensure your own happiness. So, number 1, explain your rationale. And as long as you're not using an excuse or that it sounds like an excuse, because we're not making excuses, but we should explain ourselves. Number 2, pause. Silence for 5 or more seconds. The other person may elaborate more on what they think is your wrongdoing. If so, just let them. But when they finish, agree and pause again. The silence allows them to soak in the concept. It allows you to soak in the concept, so no one's on the defense and no one is resisting. Number 3, let the other person have the final say or the final word. Listen. But for the most part, you will have had said it all to the other person, and the conflict will disappear with your arrangement. If you find that it is vital in your adult life to listen first and be defensive, either last or not at all, most of the time, it truly just isn't worth it. So don't mind in having the last word. Let them have the last word, be the bigger person, and move on. Number 4, apologize and mean it. The reason I'm using this phrase mean it is because sometimes I feel like people don't truly mean it when they apologize. They say, I'm sorry, and they go about their day and they're not really sorry, but I'm saying, apologize, maybe saying my apologies, and truly mean it. An apology is one of the simplest acts of speaking words of genuine regret. So mean it. If you're going to say number 4, if you're going to apologize, mean it. If you're not going to mean it, just don't say it at all. Number 5, agree to disagree. Agree to disagree. And I know I said this one throughout the episode, but even if this one, it might seem difficult for you, and it's a good one for everyone to practice. But too often in this modern world, I feel like we think that we have to convince ourselves, the other person of our point, of our opinion, of our side, and change their mind. But the truth is, we don't have to all think the same. And in fact, it's most likely we won't. And that's the beautiful thing about having our own opinions and our own thoughts separately from each other. All right. I feel like this episode was a little deep, but that is all for me today. I hope we can all take this lesson and really put it into practice, because I feel like a lot of these things I go through in my own life, and I feel like it's so valuable to remember. And in the heat of the moment or the heat of things, it can be really difficult to, put into practice. So I'm glad that I can share what I'm going through basically to y'all. But if y'all have something similar, if this is resonating with you, if y'all want to add something to this, go ahead and put that in the comment section below. If you're on YouTube, I would love to hear your thoughts about, all of these different topics that we talk about. And don't forget to go to the podcast, rate, review, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I love you guys so much. If you have any recommendations on what you want to hear for future episodes, also, please let me know. I love you guys, and I will talk to you guys next week.